All right, let's dive right into this explainer because we've got something really fascinating to uncover today. If you look at the vast, sprawling history of Earth Station, it is so easy to just focus on the Council of 36, right? The primary governing body, the big politicians. But today we're going to look well beyond those seats of power. We are looking at the Broader Census. These are the non-council alien races who actually turn the wrenches, maintain the air, and have secretly watched and maintained humanity's home from the deepest shadows for thousands of years.
So think about this for a second. Why do humans, across completely isolated cultures that never interacted, share the exact same myths about spiders, bears, and birds? Well, the really interesting part about this is that the answer isn't just a coincidence, and it definitely isn't just human imagination. According to the source records, it's actually a deeply embedded biological memory of our ancient alien caretakers. You see, these recurring shapes in our art and our myths predate any conscious encounter we had with the beings they depict. Earth Station itself literally has a biological memory, and it imprinted these unseen caretakers right into our subconscious.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the Unseen Observers. There is a massive, fundamental difference between the Council of 36, who handle the governance, the politics, and the treaties, and the Broader Census. The census is made up of the races that actually maintain the station's scientific and cultural life. They have observer status, or sometimes they're just completely independent. They don't vote in the chamber, but honestly, without them, Earth Station simply wouldn't function. And get this, some of them have actually been present way longer than the actual council members.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Builders and Maintainers. First up, we've got the Thrak. Imagine massive, ancient craftspeople from a cold, high-gravity world. They're fundamentally bear-like, heavy-bodied, immensely strong, but they have these incredibly sensitive fingertips. They're the geological engineers who laid the very foundations of Earth Station's deepest biological substrate. And their deep Earth tunneling perfectly explains why human mythology consistently links bears to deep caves, winter sleep, and this ancient, slow intelligence.
Next, meet the Solari. These guys are basically octopus-like cephalopods who evolved on a dense water world. They have distributed nervous systems, meaning they have 9 processing nodes rather than just a single central brain, and they communicate through these gorgeous, shifting patterns of color on their skin. They are hands down the galaxy's foremost biological engineers. They designed the entire atmospheric respiratory cycle of Earth Station, and they actually live inside the station's body to maintain it.
And here's the absolute best part about the Solari. When they were finally offered a fancy council seat, they turned it down with this incredibly humble phrase, "We prefer to work." The archive notes they've actually given this exact same response 37 times across history. It was the Solari who quietly delivered the Nephilian virus antiviral treatment to humanity during the Ark period. No ceremony, no parade, they just worked, doing what their tradition values most, being the ones who tend.
All right, Section 3, Keepers of the Record.
Enter the Arani. Now these are arachnid investigative scientists with 6 functional limbs and 8 eyes that process simultaneously. They are the ultimate pattern trackers. They are capable of following incredibly complex causal chains across millennia. And this perfectly confirms our deep-seated spider myths about unseen intelligences tracking conceptual threads from the absolute edge of perception. Basically, when you need to know what caused a tiny signal buried in thousands of years of noise, you call the Arani.
And speaking of patience, let's talk about an 11,000-year stakeout. The Devathi are reptilian monitoring specialists from a stable old star system. Their baseline nervous system is fully optimized for tracking agonizingly slow changes. They watch the Earth Station simulation population with absolutely uninterrupted patience for 11 millennia. They sit in a boundary station entirely outside our frame of reference, which flawlessly aligns with humanity's cross-cultural super-accurate intuition that we are always being watched.
But then you have to ask, who remembers what was lost? That heavy burden falls to the Volundra. They are avian, bird-like beings adapted from the intelligence of large corvids. They're the galaxy's keepers of the grief record. They formally maintain the memory of things that ended and exactly what it cost. This elegantly explains why human myths invariably depict birds as the carriers of the dead. The Volundra have been receiving all the desperate messages humanity has sent into the sky for 11 millennia, faithfully holding on to our emotional truth.
Which leads us down, literally, to Section 4, the Deep Listeners.
Meet the Velk. They diverged from their evolutionary cousins, the Narathi, roughly 4 million years ago. But while the Narathi eventually climbed up onto land, the Velk stayed in the lightless deep ocean. Because they had absolutely no reason to leave, they developed a communication system of frequency-modulated sound that is impossibly complex. It is quite literally a language of absolute patience. They don't build with tools, they actually shape the solid rock of the ocean floor through sustained sound over millions of years. It's a process called biological acoustic sculpting.
And this takes us to Section 5, the ancient message.
Just look at the sheer, mind-boggling scale of this logistical journey. The Velk composed this message 6,000 years ago. It took them 11 years just to transmit it to the Narathi, who then took 30 years to translate it into the common tongue. And then, the Narathi held on to it for millennia. Why? Because the Velk composed this message blindly trusting the shape of a circle they knew would eventually close. They waited to deliver it the literal day after the reparations closure vote at session 22,897. When this message was finally delivered to the 3 human delegates, man, it was profoundly moving. The message directly addressed humanity, revealing that the Velk had been listening to our voices, to our reaching, throughout the entire 11,000-year quarantine. They knew the exact acoustic signature of a species trying to remember something that exists in its biology, but not in its conscious mind.
The Velk's message spoke of these desperate marks that human hands had literally carved into a deep oceanic trench. They explained that these marks were created when the conditions for making anything had completely vanished. And most beautifully, they revealed that Earth Station's ocean itself intentionally held on to those marks for 300,000 years. The ocean decided they mattered, and the Velk had been listening to the ocean keep that secret all along. Bringing us to our final part, Section 6, Vel Shari Ko. The first profound word they gave us was Vel Shari Ko. Now, the Lyran concept of Vel Shari meant the pride of being exceeded by something you began, but the Velk added the Narathi suffix Ko. This deep language addition of Ko honors that you exceeded when every single condition of your dark, cold quarantine should have outright destroyed you. You made things when making was impossible.
The second concept the Volk shared, well, it actually wasn't translatable, but they did explain the meaning behind it. The Volk explained that the 11,000 years of desperate reaching didn't just return humanity to its origin. You aren't what you were before the flood or the virus. Instead, the constraint and the reaching totally transformed humanity. You began as a single note, but after surviving the dark, you arrived as a deeply complex chord.
This realization, it just rippled through the council. It brought the Lyran senior delegate, Zaravel, to a stunning silence. She actually retreated to seat 15, the seat of exceeding, just to sit and think. She finally had a word for the resilience humanity built in the absolute dark. The Velk gave us the vocabulary to understand that we survived what should have ended us, and in doing so, we became something exponentially more.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Like humanity in the quarantine, we all face moments where the pressure feels immense and the light seems completely gone. But knowing the legacy of Velsharico, knowing that the deepest observers revere what is built in the dark, what will you choose to create when conditions are at their absolute worst? Thank you so much for exploring the broader census with me. Keep seeking, keep building, and I will catch you next time.